When the year began, we would have thought that their primary objective was to bring the tariff levels down and negotiate just about trade. But what we've learned is that they are much more concerned about U.S. export controls, because that is ultimately what hurts them far more than even tariffs do, because they have ways to get around the tariffs. And so what they've done is they've used their chokehold on rare earths minerals and magnets and compelled really the administration to relent and roll back U.S. export controls while also bringing down the tariffs. So 2 wins for Xi Jinping in the last several months.
But what kind of relationship do you think he wants with the United States going forward?
Well, he'd love nothing more than to be able to sell as much as possible and be able to import the things they care about most, the most advanced technology, not just chips, but across the board, right? That's in an ideal world. Now, that's probably not what he's getting right away, but he's getting pretty close to it. I don't think he feels a pressure to do anything more. I don't think he feels a pressure today to say, I'm going to pledge like Japan and Europe did, $500 billion worth of investment, or I'm going to pledge to buy all this U.S. agricultural output the way I did in the past. I think they've demonstrated, Xi specifically, we've got a lot of leverage and we don't need to play ball if we don't feel like it.
I do think it's interesting that they want all the high tech, and yet Beijing is urging local companies to avoid using NVIDIA's H20 processors, particularly for government-related purposes. So yes, but there's always caveats. Jimena, come on in on this, because in the meantime, Latin America is watching very closely, I'm sure, and remind us of the relationship that already exists with China across Latin America, and maybe what they hope to even solidify even further.
Thank you, Carol. Yes, Xi and Lula just talked, and they said the relationship is as strong as ever. But so far, the support from China to Brazil seems to have been largely rhetorical, right? They have said, they have shared views on multilateralism and unilateralism on behalf of the U.S., condemning that, and China has been very keen on jumping on this collective criticism of the U.S. But even though Trump's tariffs may be giving BRICS, the bloc that Brazil and China have, along with India, Russia, and other smaller partners, even though Trump tariffs seem to be giving it some mortar, it's still far from operating as a bloc, and it's not really coordinating a response, a collective response to the Trump tariffs.
Jimena, on that note, do you anticipate that's likely to happen? I remember that moment a few months ago when there was a meeting of the BRICS countries. There was this tacit threat that they were going to work more closely together in opposition to what the United States was doing. President Trump clearly irritated, agitated by that, threatened even more punitive sanctions, more tariffs on those BRICS countries as a result of that. What would the catalyst be that would get them to do more than, as you say, just talk about presenting a more united front against the United States?
I think there are 2 main issues that are blocking a more integrated response, a more coordinated response. One is the very diverse membership of the group in general, and also with respect to the Trump tariffs. They are facing slightly different issues, although they are becoming increasingly closer in the sense that, for example, now Brazil and India are similarly targeted. But, for example, Russia has so far not been targeted with tariffs, although they have other issues with the U.S., of course. But the key thing is that China doesn't really need the bloc as much as the other members of the bloc need China, or would benefit from a coordinated response with China. As Shehzad just said, China has a lot of leverage, has demonstrated has a lot of leverage to push back without offering any dramatic concessions as other countries have done, and the U.S. has backed down. So China does not really need to have the collective weight and heft of the BRICS bloc to stand up to Trump. If it did, however, it could really expand its geopolitical cloud, and it would mean the BRICS would function more as a bloc. But so far, I think China is very focused on its national interests, and as long as it can stand up to Trump on its own and it has the leverage to do it, it is unlikely to compromise its national interest to expand the BRICS heft.